We self-organize ourselves around what we care about. Wall Street firms, capital-centric firms, are organized around capital. They're organized around the notion that financial wealth is the highest good and more is always better when it comes to financial wealth. And so let's organize our economy around this principle. But in the emerging economy, it's called the new economy. I call it the generative economy, which means that it's life-serving. We have to reorganize ourselves around life. Community life, family life, employees, we need to be focused on employee well-being. We need to focus on ecological well-being.
It was always about the greater good. It was always about what's best for the whole nation, what's best for the earth, and not what's best for the individual.
African American mutual aid started pretty much on the boats when we were dragged here forcibly in chains. We were helping each other. So from then, we had this sense, I think probably from the way that African cultures had also had a sense of mutuality and communalism, and then we practiced it wherever we could.
And I already knew that the economic models we were looking at carried their own values, and that our values were different, and that culture was our strength, not our weakness. Because this was back in the days where everybody knew Indians couldn't do business because we shared too much and we cooperated. It seemed to me like those were good things, and that businesses could be successful by sharing and cooperating.
Until Lakota Federal Credit Union was chartered, there was not a single bank, federally insured financial institution depository on the Pine Ridge Reservation. And I thought a credit union is so different, is different enough than a bank because it is member owned, and not to make some bank board members, owners wealthy.
Public bank is a financial institution that is owned by a local government, a city, a region, or a state. And the deposit base for a public bank are the taxes, the fees, the fines, the funds, the revenue that our city accrues, which then leverages to create loans just like any other bank. But the difference between a public bank and a private bank is with a public bank, the interest and profit belongs to the community. So rather than it gets siphoned out of state by private Wall Street bankers and private shareholders, that money stays here and gets recirculated back into our local communities so that we can fund things that we need: affordable housing, solutions to homelessness, a Green New Deal for Los Angeles.
Capitalism just allows a few people to make it. Everybody else gets left behind. Then we need a strategy like cooperative ownership, because there you have broad ownership, you have community wealth.
Once an employee becomes an employee owner, which is a one-year eligibility period, and then he or she is voted upon by the existing worker owners, they immediately begin to build equity in the company. They're immediately fully vested for profit sharing.
Kodiak Electric is a cooperative, and we're owned by what we call the members. So when you have a service or meter with Kodiak Electric, you are a owner of the company. The benefit is that any profits that are made by the company are redistributed to the owners as capital credits or dividends, I suppose you could call it.
On our 34 acres, we have a regenerative community development. It's one of our 8 initiatives. Currently, we have 21 single-family homes, 7 are complete. Our broader goal for this community is to be net zero.
DCLT Plus One is a pilot project for DCLT, and it's the idea of combining CLT homes, so our traditional CLT home where the owner owns the home and we own the land, with an accessory dwelling unit. But our plan is to to construct new housing and an accessory dwelling on the same lot and sell them both. It would also provide some increased revenue and equity for the homeowner.
In November of 2019, we actually had our vote on Resolution 126R19, which was to establish reparations for the Black community in Evanston using the cannabis sales tax revenue. What today is a $25,000 direct benefit for housing equity that will build wealth immediately through equity.
So this arose from this tent camp community that started as a protest in a downtown parking lot in Olympia, and it was a protest against an anti-homeless ordinance that the city had passed. They had this idea of having tiny little houses and then a shared community building that would have a kitchen and showers and laundry facility, which is, in a sense, exactly what we've built. The big difference between being homeless on the street or in the woods, around here a lot of people are homeless in the woods, and being homeless in the camp is the difference between loneliness and community. So it was really interesting, at least for me at least, to learn that there are two fundamental human needs. One is housing, the other is community, and that they're equally important.
So we're here at Kewakball Gardens, which is a 1 acre teaching and production farm. So we do a lot of mixed vegetable production. We do a lot of egg production as well. We have some hens out here. And our goal was originally to teach the community how to grow their own food. And so having to balance the needs of like people are hungry now, but also trying to create systems that are more sustainable and more future thinking. And so the way we do that is to increase local food access, is to increase the amount of tribal food producers. And so we've started a farmer training program, really geared at getting people ready to start their own food production.
The Woolakota Regenerative Buffalo Range is a 28,000 acre buffalo range that will be home to 1,500 animals. It will be the largest Native American owned and managed buffalo herd in the world.
I was the project director for the law and standards, and we produced the Missouri report. So what happened then is, armed with that study, the Missouri public defenders, God bless their souls, stood up to those judges. He says, I need relief for 16 public defenders pursuant to that methodology. Thank God he found a judge that was about to retire. And the judge says, you're right, that those 16 public defenders are violating the law, violating their ethical obligations under the law. Do that anymore. It's a caseload standard now that has been validated in the courts as a result of the case that arose out of St. Louis County.
I was checking the numbers on that office's wait list recently and saw that it was gone. And I called the attorney who runs the office and I said, where's your wait list? I can't find it. It's not in the database. And she said, well, we don't have it anymore. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have it? How did you do that? She said, you gave me 2 more attorneys. That's how I did it.
We're at a place right now where we're all trying to decide, okay, how does one person make a difference? I don't know, but I really think that artists have a unique responsibility to look at things differently and processing very differently. And then through that processing, there's an articulation, whether it's tangible, whether it's a performance installation like we're doing in Washington, D.C., to look at things in a creative way that may have some really interesting answers.
Positive Indian Parenting is an 8-lesson curriculum. The first lesson is asked people to examine where they learn to parent. And if you learn to parent in boarding school, or if you're learn to parent from people who were raised in boarding school, you didn't get a chance to learn the rich traditions that teach that children are sacred beings.
Our language is embedded with our lifeways and our spirituality. We have a kindergarten through 1st grade total immersion classroom. We are designing a truly Lakota total immersion school.
The ultimate goal is to get our kids to be intermediate fluent in Lakota. We're going to speak our language, so that way we sustain our fluency. But we also start to take back our space. We start to take back our space that always had belonged to us.
So they're really taking what they've learned here about healthy eating habits, but also like cultural eating habits. And I'm hoping, you know, all of that together, we really become a healthy nation. Because we know the statistics of our chronic diseases, our mortality rates, the food apartheid. We know those stats. So how are we working with our kids to really change those? Because they're the future.
We still have to meet state standards to be qualified as a school. So testing-wise, they're in all of their things, reading, math, science, they're all testing at least 1 grade level ahead, which is amazing. But it all comes back to what they're learning.
My vision is that we're going to have a whole bunch of change makers, you know, coming about from the school as they see and learn from a different lens. Because growing up, I didn't see myself. I didn't see my people's history.
It was a real honor to design classes that were going to reflect the students within them and their history, the stories, their culture, their lived experiences now. And that's what we did. We did it through literature, we did it through social studies, we did it through art. And what ended up happening is the students found themselves, educational outcomes went through the roof. Students were graduating, in the high 90% from all of our high schools that we taught at.
Political economy in which we all live has already passed its end date. Signs of dysfunction are everywhere. And so another system is coming. And the real question, I think, for those who genuinely care about others and care about the future, our children or other people's children, future generations, is what kind of system should we transition to? One thing that we're very consciously focused on is not only partnering up with existing initiatives, but also seeing startups come out of the research that we're doing here, so that students, when they graduate and go back to their communities or to other parts of the region, they don't just go into business for themselves, they do it for each other and for the communities. Right. They form cooperatives, they take a different approach than they might otherwise.
We really believe, and I really believe, that what we have to be working for is a balance in all things, in the way we think, in the way we act, in our relationships to one another and the earth. And so that's what we're actively fighting for here, is a restoration of that balance.